Hello. So I wanted to introduce you to the 2024 version of Grandad's Model Railway. We've had some changes this year and some extensions and some new buildings. As you can see, it's a Hornby Dublo 3-rail train set. Nearly everything on this track, not the buildings, but the track and the trains and carriages, etc., all date from the 1950s or very early 1960s, so they're a pretty similar age to Grandad. So as you can see, the train set fills basically a double garage and consists of as follows. So we've got a little town going on down here, back-to-back terrace type housing. Actually, they're not terraces, are they? They're semis. A high street in the middle over there. Then we swing round through some more housing in the town, church, further high street buildings, side streets, and then we come around to what I think of as my industrial area. So factories, a few railway buildings, storage buildings, workshops, etc. And then we spin round into the farm. And the farm runs across the tracks. You can see that we've got pigs, cows, tractors, etc. going on. And then finally, our coal mine. Admittedly, it's a bit incongruous, so the coal mine sits right next to the farm, but given track limitations and my love of the coal mine, you have to go somewhere, so that's where it goes. Then, if we come round the track, you can see it in its full scope from this side, and as you'll see on the back where we were just filming, we've got quite a lot of relief style buildings that run all the way along the back to make the town seem more substantial. Back through the housing, station over there, breakdown train, and coming round into the goods yards. Then into the engine sheds. I currently run 17 Hornby Dublo 3-rail trains on this track at the moment. Praise the Lord, they're all working. Then we come down through what I'm now calling the Castle Village, because this year's big addition has been the castle, which I'll explain to you in a minute. So we've got a field of sheep going on over there. Don't know what those workers are doing, but they seem to be doing something useful. And we've got a stables with a guy sewing horseshoes. And then we've got the castle. Now I need to explain to you a little bit about my railway and who's involved. Because though I am the main railway builder, I have a 5-year-old grandson called Finn. And Finn plays a major role in this railway. We do not always agree on what we should do with the railway, but we have to make quite a few compromises. Now this year, Finn was very keen that we included a castle in the railway. So this railway comes down in October and I rebuild it in April, May, because the Hornby Dublo can't be left out during the winter. It would rust, and who would want to come in the garage in the winter? So it takes about a week to put it all back together again, which given the size of it, you're probably not surprised to hear. And given how dodgy some of the track can be, again, it's over 70 years old, most of it, electrical connections can be difficult. So back in April, after this request for a castle came, I went to the Metcalfe website and found the elements that you need to make a castle and built it. And I thought, right, he's going to be thrilled with this. So on Finn's first visit post castle building, I was very proud, waited for him to see and react. His reaction wasn't quite what I expected. He said, "Why are there no sidings in the castle, Grandad?" Now I was flummoxed by that for a minute. Sidings in a castle. But then I found out, with a little bit of inquiry, where that came from. Apparently, in an episode of Thomas the Tank Engine on his television, he'd seen a castle with sidings in. Now, I try to make this railway a bit of an image of 1950s stroke 60s. That's the notion that I've got in my mind when I put it all together. Don't get me wrong, I'm not pretending that everything works. Some of the vehicles are completely wrong for the 1950s and 60s. Some of the buildings are also wrong, but that's the image in my mind. The engines, the track, carriages, coaches, etc. It's all sort of 1950s, round about when Grandad was born. So the idea of a railway running into a castle didn't quite compute with Grandad, so we had to have a bit of a discussion about that. Now, fortunately, I worked out that there wasn't room through the gate for track to go in anyway. So I said to him, "I'm so sorry, we can't do that. What a pity, what a shame, I'm heartbroken." But he wasn't to be beaten. He said, "Well, if we can't do that, Grandad, then I think we should have knights in shining armour." Aha. I said, well, again, maybe not quite in keeping with the 1950s. I had to think, how can I win this one? And then I remembered that he and I had visited a castle together as tourists. And I said to him, maybe in the 1950s, when this railway was invented, there wouldn't have been knights in shining armour, but we could make it a tourist castle, and we could have tourists on the roof and walking around and a police lady outside. And anyway, eventually I managed to talk him round. But what's very interesting about model railways is the difference in perspective between grown-ups and children. What do I mean by that? Well, Finn's idea of good fun with the railway is nothing to do with how accurate it looks. It's nothing whatsoever to do with the engines, the type of engines that you run, the carriages. Not interested. He just wants it to be fun. And his idea of fun, as I just explained, would be something like knights in shining armour in a castle. And that's his perspective. Now mine has to be to try and balance that element of fun with my bit of fun, which is trying to create something which is a little bit realistic. Not very, I accept, but at least a little bit for my little mind. So, compromise is where we come in. Now, another fine example of that comes in speed. Finn's idea of fun on the railway is racing the trains. He thinks it's a brilliant idea to make the trains go as fast as is humanly possible and see who can win a race on a circuit at the track, or who can catch up with another train if their two lines run close to each other, etc., etc. Now that leads, as you might imagine, to a lot of twisted and bent metal if we're not very careful. Now, Grandad's idea is to slow the trains down as much as is humanly possible, which is difficult with Hornby Dublo, and especially with track which is not pinned down. Because I take my track up and down every year, as you can see, it can't be pinned down. And that means that connections between rails can be dodgy, especially with the old track. And so my way of slowing the trains down has been to make sure that the power reaches every part of the track as much as possible. If it doesn't, then you need to run the trains almost flat out in order to guarantee that they will get all the way around the track. Now, the way I've done that is I have used extra wiring from each of the three controllers. I run 3 separate rails, but I've wired them into the tracks in various places. So for instance, as you can see down here on the outer track, I've got a connection out here, but although we can't see it from here, there's another connection over there. I don't know if I can zoom in and find it. Let's try. No, I can't. But anyway, there is another connection. Oh, there we go. There's another connection over there. Yes, I think you can just about see it. So that's number 2 connection. And then spinning round this way, number 3 connection comes in over there. And on the outer track, I think I've got a 4th connection. Yes, I have. All the way down here. Now that's really important, because if you want to control the speed of the trains and not have them going manic, although Finn's disappointed in it, you do need to use your, make sure the power is balanced all around the track. And let's see if we can demonstrate. We'll set a couple of trains off and I'll try and make them go what I consider to be a sensible speed, rather than top speed that Finn would like to see them go at. And I can do that at about half power. They will go a lot faster, obviously, if I wanted them to, but I don't really, except when Finn comes, and then I don't really have much choice. That's interesting. That one's stopped altogether. Oh, there we are. I didn't give it quite enough power for that corner. So yes, trying to get to a realistic speed is something that I'm interested in, but Finn doesn't necessarily find that a whole lot of fun. So again, we have to compromise a little bit and see what we can do. But the other perspective that I wanted to show you, where we see things differently, is about the visual perspective. Now then, I've been filming this standing up, and you've seen everything that I've done. We're looking down on the track. When Finn comes, I often get out those step ladders over there and put them up for him, and so he can stand on them and look at the trains and look at the track and see what I can see. But sometimes he says to me, "Grandad, I don't want to go on the ladder today. I want to see the trains looking real." Now, that can be a little bit confusing. What do you mean, Finn, looking real? He said, "Well, they look better when I stand on the floor." So after he went one day, I had to think about that. And I thought, well, let's have a look. And I tried to film it from Finn's point of view rather than from a grown-up point of view. And I'm going to do it for you now. And perhaps we can see what it is that he sees that we don't see. So I'm bringing the camera down now to the height of a 5.5-year-old boy. And this is the view that Finn has when he is looking at the railway. He doesn't see it the way we do. He's not looking down upon it. He's looking at it from almost the edge of the table height. And I think you can see it's a very different perspective. In particular, down in the streets, it does look somewhat more realistic. I'll just keep panning it round so you can see what things look like when you're 5 years old rather than when you're closer to 70 years old. The view of the engine sheds is particularly interesting from Finn's height. So there it is, back up to Grandad height now, I think you'll agree that perspective shows a completely different look to the railway, and it's certainly the one that Finn prefers rather than looking down on it. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed seeing Grandad's 2024 version of his railway. I have a lot of fun putting it together, and I have a lot of fun playing with my grandson with it. But that's what it is. It is a model, but it is also a toy. And I think we should never forget that, those of us that enjoy railways, because toys are what bring grown-ups and children together. And there is absolutely nothing more fun and nothing that's more guaranteed to get you close to your grandchildren or children than playing together. And playing together requires a bit of compromise, and not just trying to make things the way you want them, but to accept that children see things rather differently. Anyway, I shan't bore you any longer. Thanks very much for watching. Bye.